Hi all, a very good afternoon. Thank you for having taken the time to join me in today's workshop. This is Jay, product expert from the AD Solutions team here at Manage Engine. So first things first, before we get into today's session, for those of you who want to try out the product as I demonstrate today, you can make use of the workshop instance that we've hosted on the cloud for you, and you'll be able to access that specific instance with this URL that's going to be on your screen. Log in as the administrator and you'll be able to generate reports or perform a management action and anything that's pertaining to today's session. So it's going to be demo.admanagerplus.com 321 and on your chat. So that's going to be the link that you'll have to use to try out the product from our cloud instance. All right, so that's as regards to the cloud instance. In case you have any questions coming up, feel free to make use of the chat window and shoot your questions right at me. All right, let me try and take as many questions as possible during the course of today's presentation. And maybe if I miss out on one or two questions, do not worry at all. We have an exclusive Q&A session that's scheduled towards the end of the session. I'd spend 15 minutes answering all your questions after the session gets over. So feel free to ask your questions. And yesterday's session was very interactive. A lot of you had questions pertaining to Active Directory management. Yes, we look forward to such questions. Thank you so much. Keep the questions coming. And yeah, for those of you who want a recording of the session, that can be emailed right to your inbox. All you'll have to do is towards the end of the session, just drop me a message on the chat with your email address, and I can have the recorded session sent over to you. For those of you who missed out day one and day two, you guys also do please drop me a message. I can have all the three video recordings sent over to you. All right, so let's get into today's session, and let me start off with a quick recap on what we saw on day one and day two. So we are in the third day for AD Manager Plus in the 5-day workshop series. We started off with Active Directory Management or AD Management. We saw how to make use of user creation templates. We saw how to provision users in 360-degree, by which I mean to say we had users provisioned in Active Directory, in Office 365, and in Google Apps as well. All of that from a same console. That was day one. Yesterday was about managing those users who were provisioned. So we split the user lifecycle into three parts: user creation, and then we took user management as user modification and deprovisioning yesterday. So we were talking about managing users, altering their attributes. Also, we went on to discuss about license management in Office 365. That was yesterday's session. Like I told you, for those of you who want a copy of those sessions, just drop me a message. We can have that emailed. And today's session is the third day in the 5-day workshop series. Let me quickly get into today's topic. We are going to be discussing about scripting free Active Directory reporting, efficient access administration via group membership, and file server permission management. So that's going to be the topic for the day. All right, so AD Manager Plus as an application comes pre-packaged with close to 150 plus pre-packaged reports. That's the beauty of the product. The biggest challenge administrators face day in day out is generating reports. If they want to get insight into any of the happenings in their Active Directory environment, it's going to be really difficult to manually do it. So that's where we've got the reports coming in handy. So we are not just solving the problem of generating reports or getting insights into your AD scenario, but then we've gone a step further. We've understood your requirement and we made the reports actionable. When I say actionable, what do I mean? So right after generating a AD report, right from the product, what you can do is you can perform a management action right from the very same console. So that's why the reports are, termed as actionable reports. Get your reports generated, and right after the reports are generated, have a modification task or a management task performed on those objects as a part of that report. So we are going to be talking about 10 different reports, 10 critical reports. That's going to be the agenda. We'll also get into access administration and file server management. So that's going to be the agenda for the day. let me quickly get into the topics that are going to be discussed today. All right. So yeah. Oh, okay. So the first topic, most of administrators across organization have this one specific requirement. We as administrators would always want to stay on top of the system. Yes, given the responsibilities that we have, it's important that we ensure that the Active Directory on the whole is secure. And how do we ensure that it's secure? By granting the right set of permissions to the right set of users. So we are going to be starting off by identifying logon permissions that are granted to users who are inappropriate, right? And we'll be removing those inappropriate accesses granted on your critical workstations, be it your domain controller or your file server. So we're going to start off with access control report. So we're going to be talking about logon permissions that are granted to users, and we'll be stripping those users who are not supposed to have that permission, and that's going to be through a report. All right, so the next task is more like a best practice. What would you do right after a brute force attack? So what's the best practice? So right after a brute force attack, to mitigate or to reduce the impact of the attack, as a best practice, you can go on and do an organizational wide password reset. And that can be done through a single simple report in just two simple steps. I'm going to show you how to do an organization wide password reset through a simple report. So that's going to be the second task for the day. We'll go further deep into today's session and dive into custom attributes or AD attributes in general, and we're going to be taking two different perspectives when it comes to AD attributes. One, AD attributes duplication, and number two, important AD attributes being left empty. So we are going to be handling the challenge of figuring out duplicates in certain specific AD attributes as per your requirement, and we'll also try and find out those specific objects with empty attributes or with empty AD attributes. We are going to be running reports to get that done. We'll also see how to manage or alter those empty values or remove duplicates right from the very same console. Yes. Okay, we'll proceed further to talk about group membership, a critical point of discussion for today's session. We are going to be talking about something interesting, which is nested group membership. In simple terms, if I were to give you an analogy, it's more like Leonardo DiCaprio stuck in a dream inside a dream inside a dream in Inception. So that's how nested group membership works. So administrators, uh, as a matter of fact, have to ensure that they do not just have access or do not have visibility just to the superficial group membership, or they have to get deep to understand how groups are linked. So if you were to use your native ADUC to figure out group membership, all you're going to know is just the first level of group membership. So today we are going to be generating a report to find out nested group membership. Yes, and last but not the least, we are going to be concluding today's session with file server permission management. So we are going to see how to figure out access that's given to business critical data on important file servers, and we are also going to go ahead and have those inappropriate permissions removed and assign permissions rightly. So today's topic is going to be all about Active Directory reporting. I've taken 10 top reports and 10 top use cases for discussion. Without any delay, let me get into today's session. So yes, like I told you, this is going to be the cloud instance that we've hosted for your use. You can try out generating reports from this console. All right. That's going to be demo.admanagerplus.com. So let me quickly switch to my personal instance. Yes. So we are welcomed by the dashboard view. The dashboard view, like we already know, gives us a quick overview as to what's the state in our organization. So yes, so we are able to see reports pertaining to user objects, reports pertaining to system objects, and there are other reports as well. So this module gives you a quick access or overview on what we'll be generating today manually. The next release of AD Manager Plus is going to have a module, or this specific dashboard view is going to become customizable. So you would get to specify what report has to get featured in the home tab. Yes. So yesterday's session was about AD management. We were discussing about user creation on day one and user modification on day two. user creation templates, user modification. So ideally what we've done is we've covered the user life cycle. So now we have users in our organization. The next obvious step is to generate insights or to figure out what's the status of all those users. So we are going to get into Active Directory reporting or AD reports. All right, so what we've done is we've put together a list of, like I told you, 150 plus reports. We've categorized them based on different objects. Say, for example, we've got reports for user objects, for your password reports, group objects, computers, contact, and there are certain critical reports like the security reports, NTFS reports, and Office 365 and Google Apps reports as well. So these are not just going to be Active Directory reports. We've gone further, extended our offering to Office 365 reports and Google App reports. Yesterday's session, if you might have noticed or if you remember, we were talking about an Office 365 report. So today's session is going to be all about AD reports, and I'm going to start off with a basic group report. So that's going to be the first task for the day. So like I was saying, we as the administrators would want to stay on top of the system. We'd not want to leave a gap. We want to make sure that we keep track of everything, right? What if you want to remove inappropriate access to certain critical workstations? So let's assume that there are domain controllers in your organization, and these domain controllers are supposed to be just accessed by your administrators or those members who belong to a specific group called as the domain admins group. So that's the case. Everybody else, the rest of the entire organization, they're not supposed to have access. But then, how would you go about finding those users who are not a part of a specific group? So that's going to be the challenge we'll be discussing or solving first. So we are going to be generating a report or making use of this specific report called as users not in groups report. So this report is going to give us the list of all the other users who are not a part of a specific group. In our case, we are talking about critical domain controllers and file servers. So they are supposed to be accessed by just the domain admins group. So we are going to go ahead and generate a list of all the users, excluding those employees or users from a specific group called as domain admins. So the first report or the first task is going to be users not in groups. All right, so let me quickly go ahead and show you how to select from the list of available groups that are present. So we are intending to select an administrator group. So from the all available list of groups that are listed right here, I'm going to go ahead and pick domain admins. And why am I doing that? Because my intention is to generate a list of all those users who are not a part of the domain admins group. So I've selected that specific group. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Let me go ahead and quickly hit generate. So now you must be having a question in your mind. Why am I generating a list of all those non-admin users? Like I told you, the reports are actionable. Now that I have all the users who aren't domain administrators, so now there are close to 91 users who aren't a part of the domain admins group. Yes, so this gives me quick access to remove permissions to all these users in one go. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly select all of these users. Yes, I've selected all the 91 of them. This is the list of all those users who are not domain administrators, domain admins, who do not belong to the domain admins. They're just members of the domain users group. Yes. Okay, so the next thing is to understand that you can perform management actions right from the console. So I'm going to go ahead and click more actions. So this is going to give me a list of management actions that I can perform on the selected users. So the management action that I'd want to perform right now is to remove access to those critical file servers and domain controllers. So I'm going to go ahead and select user workstations. So what I've done is I've generated a report that has all the users excluding the users who are part of this user group, which is domain admins. So that way I've got hold of them and I'm performing a management action on user workstations by removing them of any access that they have to critical file servers or domain controllers. So I'm going to go ahead and hit go. Yes. All right, so this takes me to a window that says modify user logon workstations. So what do I have right here? I have all the non-admin users in one place. The next thing is a simple step. I'll have to select allow selected computers and then choose remove computers and specify those critical domain controllers that I want to remove from this list. Or let me quickly go ahead and select DC1 and DC2 and hit OK. So what am I doing right here? I've generated a report called as users not in groups report, and from that specific report, all right, from that specific report, I've gone ahead, selected all of those users who are not domain administrators. I've gone to the management module, selected remove computers from users, yes, and I've selected the domain controller, the critical machines for which I want to remove access, and all I'll have to do is just hit apply. So the moment I hit apply, all the non-admin users or all the non-domain admin users who are not a part of that group will be stripped of access from these two critical domain controllers. So that's how you go about and remove inappropriate logon permissions that are given to critical domain controllers. Yes, so that's the first task for the day. We are done with the first task for the day, which is a group report that we were discussing about. It was a group report for users not in a specific group. So this was the first task. All right, so let me get into the second task or a second set of tasks. So the next one is, again, like I told you, a critical report from a security standpoint. So we are talking about the best practice that's got to be followed right after a brute force attack. Now I'd want to reset passwords for all of the users in my organization. So what do I have to do? Firstly, I'll have to select all of the users. And how do I select all of the users? Pretty simple, straightforward. 80 users, user report, all users report. So this is going to give me a list of all the users in my organization. Yes, the moment I hit generate, I'm going to get access to all the employees in my organization. Now that there's been a brute force attack, as a best practice, I want to go ahead and reset password for all of the users in my organization. Okay, so let me go ahead and quickly select all of them. So I'm trying to select all the 113 of them. It's asking me if I want to select all of them. Yes, indeed, I want to do that. So hitting OK. So the action that I want to perform is reset password for all of these users. From the all users report, I've selected all of them, and the next action is going to be reset password. Hitting go. Okay, so now I'm going to get a list of all the users in my organization. So from that list, I can choose to alter or modify their password attributes in 4 different ways. I can choose to reset their password by either generating a new password from a pre-configured complexity, or I can choose to type a password or use any of the two options, which is same as logon name or leave password as blank. Not advisable, definitely not advisable. You can either generate a password or type it manually. Now that I'm aware of the complexity policy that's got to be met, I'm going to go ahead and specify a complex password. Yes, specify the complex password. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that users must change their password upon next logon. I'm going to hit that. So this is going to ensure that all of the users across my organization are going to get prompted with a password reset because I've initiated it from my side, and then they're going to be asked to change the password upon the logon. So they'll be logging in with the password that I provide, and they'll be having to change their password. So that way I'm doing an organizational wide password reset in one single go. This is going to help me mitigate the impact. It's going to contain my brute force attack and not let it propagate any further. Yes, so the moment I hit apply, passwords are going to be reset for all of them, and they're also going to receive a notification to change their password upon next logon. So we've got it, all of that. We've got all of that right here. Now, you must be having a question in your mind. What about admin accounts? Yes, you can go ahead and, choose to uncheck admin accounts. You can do that and reset passwords for all of them. But then there's another option. If you want to just reset password without, or if you want to just enforce organizational password change, you can also choose to remove this option, not set any password, and just enable this flag, which is going to make them change their existing password to a new one. That can be done as well. So that way we are asking or enforcing all of them in the organization to change their passwords upon next logon. So you can do any of the two. Yes. All right, so we are done with the second case, which is resetting passwords for your users across your organization, all of the users across your organization. So now I've got a question from Jacob. Jacob asks me if there's a possibility to specify OU. Yeah, that's definitely going to be possible. So let me quickly get back to the reports that we were talking about. We were talking about all users report. So now, say for example, you are aware of the organizational unit that's been attacked or that's been breached. So you can get into all users report and just specify that OU that's been attacked. So you can just go ahead and select the OU. Say for example, let's say just the employees in United States in a specific OU have been affected. So let me quickly scroll down employees USA, hit OK. So this way, when I hit generate, it's just going to give me a list of employees from the United States, and I can select all of them and get going with the task of resetting passwords just for them. All right, I hope that answers your question, Jacob. Okay, so getting into the next task for the day. So next task is going to be quite an interesting one. We're going to be talking about AD attributes for users. Yes? AD attributes, like in the introduction, I told you we're going to be talking about two use cases. One with users who have attributes that are duplicated, and number two with users who have important attributes set as empty or not set at all. So what's the challenge in both of these cases? Say for example, let's take a critical attribute like employee ID. What if, or let's say your employee ID attribute is in turn linked to your password self-service or your help desk software, or any other integration is in place, and it's going to be the employee ID that's going to be the reference point. So by default, by mandate, the attribute has to be unique, right? Probably for a script to work. In that cases, it's going to be difficult if you go manually one user after the other from your Active Directory users in Computers Console to figure out where's the duplicate. So we've got a user report called as users with duplicate attributes. Let me quickly get into duplicate attributes report. So from the list of AD attributes that are supported in the product, let me quickly show you. So here we've got the option to select the attribute for which I want to look up for duplicates. Let me say employee ID. Now that I've taken the example of employee ID, let me quickly search for employee ID. So my intention is to figure out those users who've got duplicates in employee ID attribute. So they might be users with the same employee ID, which is not supposed to happen. So I've selected employee ID. I'm hitting OK, and I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. So what I can do is from the report that's generated, I can perform the action at this very moment. So yes, so the report is generated. We've got 4 users with duplicated employee ID attributes. So like I can see, Clark has 1900 as his employee ID, and so does Lois Lane. So Lois Lane and Clark have the same employee ID. All right, we supposed to go ahead and alter it. Though they love us, it's important that they have different employee IDs. Let me go ahead and quickly change Clark's employee ID to show you how to perform the management action. So here, let me quickly say 1901. I'm going to go ahead, hit preview to see what attribute is getting altered. So it's going to be the employee ID that's getting altered to a new one. I'm going to go ahead and hit update. So we've generated a report for duplicate attribute. as employee ID. We've understood that there are two people with the same employee ID. Now I've gone ahead and altered this specific user's attribute from the same console. All right. So when I hit generate, let's see if Clark Kent is off the list. Both Clark Kent and Lois Lane have different employee IDs now, so they have to be off the list. So hitting generate. Oh, great. So now we've successfully got them off the list. Likewise, you can get into user after user and remove it, or if in case you want to do a bulk modification, you can also do that. Generate this as a CSV file. All right, generate this as a CSV file, preferably CSVD, because when you're doing a bulk import, CSVD is going to be helpful because it comes with the LDAP headers. Generate all the users, change all the attributes that you want to change, right? And then get into bulk modification like I taught you yesterday, like I showed you how to do it yesterday. Get into bulk modification and have the attributes modified. Yes, so we're done with another important report, AD users with duplicate attributes. The next one is a similar one, which is users with empty attributes. Again, let's take the same example. Let's see how many users in my organization have employee ID left empty. It can be anything from the list that's available right here. It can be any attribute of the list that's available right here. So the last time I generated a report for mobile and IP phone. This time I'm going to go ahead and hit generate for employee ID. Just give me one quick moment. Selecting employee ID. So we've got all these attributes that are listed right here. Any of these attributes can be selected. Say for example, the manager attribute is left out empty for an employee. You want to find out those users without a manager. You can move them to this list right here and generate report. Yes, it's going to be employee ID, hitting save. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. So let's see how many users in my organization have employee ID left blank. The report generation is in progress. Good God, there are a lot of users there are close to 96 users without employee ID in my organization. So what I can do is in one go, I can select all of the users. Yes, export the specific list as a CSV file, add the employee IDs to the CSV file and bulk modify all of them in one go. Or if I want to do it manually one after the other, I can do that as well. I can select the user and fill out the empty attribute and regenerate the report, and the next time they are not going to be shown in this specific report. Likewise, I can also go ahead and have multiple parameters set at the same time. Now, what if I want another attribute that's again that should not be left empty? Let's take email address. All right, let's take email address and I'm moving it to it and I'm hitting save. So now there are two attributes that are going to be checked for. The first attribute is going to be employee ID and the second one is going to be email address. I've got two options. I can either choose to match both of the criteria or match any of them, any one of them, and hit generate. So here, those users who do not have both email address and employee ID, that's my criteria. I'm hitting generate. Now the list is smaller. That's because only these 13 users who are listed right here do not have their email addresses filled out and their employee ID attribute also not listed. So if you want to customize this view and have any specific attribute in place, you can do that by add or remove column. Yes, and then select the attribute that you want to be displayed in the report. I'm hitting OK. So what I've done is I'm trying to include a new column to this specific report. I can do that. So here I can see that both email address and employee ID is empty for all these 13 users. Or otherwise, I can also choose to just match one of the criteria and hit generate. I can do that as well. So we've learned how to generate reports for users with empty attribute. We took the example of employee ID and figured out that there were close to 90 users in my organization without an employee ID. That's pretty bad. So I can select all of them, generate a CSV file, fill out the attribute, get into AD management, For those of you who were a part of yesterday's session, you'd know how to do it. So get into modifying users from the CSV file and upload the new CSV file with the filled out values. Yes, so that way we can get going. All right, so again, getting back to AD reports, we've discussed, let me give you a quick recap on what we've discussed. We've started off with a group report. We were talking about users not in group report. We found out, or we understood as to how to find out a list of users who are not a part of a group. We generated a list, yes. We went on to talk about user reports, and in user reports we were talking about creating a list of all users in the organization and doing a password reset. Now we discussed about two more user reports, users with duplicate attributes and empty attribute. So let me get into another section of reports or AD reports that are available, which are password reports. All right, so password reports are going to be really critical because day in day out as administrators we are going to get calls or requests or support tickets requesting to change passwords, to unlock user accounts, to alter the password and so on and so forth. So just to make sure that you're on top of the system, and thus just to make sure that your system is secure from a security standpoint as well, so we can make use of password reports and get started with users with password unchanged. Yes, this is one report that I'll be discussing, and another crucial report is users with password set as never expire. So both of these cases, be it a user's password not changed at all, or be it a user's password is set to never expire, at both of the instances it's going to be critical, it's going to be troublesome, and it could probably be a security loophole that an attacker can make use of. So I'm guessing that my organization would not have users with password unchanged. Let me quickly check if there are any users who've not changed their password at all. So password unchanged users. All right, so here what I can do is from the password unchanged users report, I can set my respective time, or I can set the time of say for example, let's say a time of 30 days. So I'm going to go ahead and generate a list of users who've not reset their password in the last 30 days, or let's say 60 days for that matter. That would be a more logical time span. From the available list, I can do it for a month, I can do it for a week, for 30 days, and now I'm going to go ahead and choose 60 days. Yes. So I'm going to get a list of all those users who've not reset their password or who've not changed their password in the last 60 days. As a best practice, it's good to alter or change their user's password monthly once. That would be a good best practice. Let's see. All right, that's great. So I'm not able to find any user in my organizational environment or in this setup who've not changed their password in the last 60 days. So my system or my setup is secure. Let me go ahead and choose a shorter span so that I can generate and show you the report. Let's say, for just example or just for explanation sake, I've selected 7 days and I'm hitting generate. All right, so we've got a list of users right here. If this was 60 and we had users right here, we are supposed to go ahead, select the users and initiate a password reset on their behalf. So as administrators, if users have not changed their password in a considerable span of time, say 60 days, you can select those users one by one, or you can select all of them. And when you hit change password upon next logon, you're going to force them to change their passwords when they log on the next time. So that's going to be an action that you're taking from your end just to ensure that they alter their password or change their password without fail. Or like I already showed you, you can also choose this option to reset password. You can either choose to force them to reset their password upon next logon, or go one step further and initiate the reset or do the actual reset from your side. You can say generate password for user based on password complexity. Select all of the users. The moment you hit apply, the user's password is going to be changed for all of them. Yes. All right, so that is how you find out those users who've not changed their password for a considerable amount of time and initiate a password reset. So the next password report is going to be users whose password is set to never expire. This is okay. This is at least fine and manageable. But then when it comes to users whose password attribute is set to never expire, it's going to be a challenge of another level. So let me get into it to see those users whose passwords are set to never expire. So this is going to be a definite security a violation that we are doing right here. This could probably lead way to an attack. And most importantly, in this list, we should never have an administrator account, because administrator accounts are all the more critical. Privileged accounts have to have their password never set as never expire. You're getting it? Yes. So we have generated a list of users. So we have close to 43 users in my organization whose password expiry is set to never expire. So I've got domain users, that's fine. Oh my goodness, I've got a domain administrator whose password is set to never expire. So as a best practice, like I told you, you can select all of the users and choose to initiate a password reset, or just alter this specific password expiry status. So now I've got a list of all those users whose password attribute is set as never expire. I've selected the all users. I'm getting into reset password, hitting go. This is going to take me to the password reset screen from where I can disable never expiry. All right, so you can either choose to reset the password or just choose to change the password expiry status as no. So password never expires, not at all. I've set no. I've selected all of the users, and the moment I hit apply, their password expiry is going to change and the password never expires is going to become a big no. All right, so that's another password report for you. We're talking about AD reports. We've discussed two password reports. One was users password never expires, and the next one was password unchanged users. Okay, let me quickly show you another important password report, which is soon to expire user passwords. So this is going to come in handy when you want to send notifications or reminders to all of your users, say for example whose password is going to expire in the next 1 week, let's say next 7 days. So soon to expire user password, next 7 days, hitting generate. All right, so nobody in my organization is got this as their attribute. Let's take a bigger time span, hitting generate. Okay, so I've got 7 users in my organization whose passwords are going to get reset in the next 30 days. I can go ahead and give them a notification, select them, and choose to intimate them that they have to change their password. So that is going to save me a lot of trouble. Instead of facing support tickets, I can have them handled beforehand. The best option that I can choose in this particular case is I can specify a timeline. All right, let's say next 7 days, and schedule a report that's going to get delivered to my inbox with all those user accounts whose passwords are going to get expired in a specific time span. So that way I can be on top of my system to know whose password or which user's password is going to expire on what specific date, intimate those users beforehand, and ensure that they reset their passwords. All right, so that's another report. We also discussed about scheduling reports. That's a useful feature. Okay, we've discussed about password reports. Let's get back to user reports and talk about a very critical report. Inactive users report. Let me quickly get into it. As the name implies, we are going to find out those users who are inactive in the organization for a specific time span. So like password expiry status, inactivity again is also a potential channel that attackers can use. Say for example, a user has left your organization. It's been close to 3 months or 90 days since he's left the organization. So his account has been inactive. You never know, if you do not deprovision his account, he might come back into your organization and cause a security attack. So to prevent that, you can go ahead and generate a report. Say for example, the last 30 days or last 90 days, last 3 months, I can generate a report that's going to show me or give me a list of all those inactive users who've been inactive in the last 90 days. Hitting generate. All right, so I've got 76 users in my system who've been inactive in the last 3 months. I have two options that I want you to note. One is to exclude the disabled users. Let's see and exclude disabled users to find out the active, the enabled users. All right, so the list has become small. So this is going to give me a list of all those users who've been inactive in the last 90 days and have not been disabled yet. Let me also choose to exclude users who've never logged on. That's going to make my list still smaller. Yes, so here I'm just saying those users who've not logged on, who've been inactive for the last 90 days and are also enabled users. So these users have to be either moved to a new OU called as a quarantine OU because they've been inactive. They have to be stripped of their group membership. You can do that, and finally deprovision them as you see fit. So I've got the list of users right here, inactive users. All right, I can choose to delete them straight away if I know that they're no longer a part of my organization. I can do that, or I can choose to disable those users before I go about doing any operation. So I've got inactive users, I can choose to disable them. Right after disabling them, I can have them moved to a specific organizational unit. So I have a organizational unit or an OU or a specific container that's called quarantine. So I'll be moving all those inactive users to that specific OU called as quarantine. So as a best practice, I'm doing this. I'm disabling them, I'm moving them to a quarantine OU, and finally, I can choose to perform a management action on top of them. I can choose to delete them or deprovision them or perform any of the actions that are available right here. Delete the users. If I choose to delete, I can hit delete straight away. Yes. So what do we do with inactive users? We've got an AD report, a user report for finding out the list of inactive users for a specific time period, for your desired times period. We also have the provision to discard or disable or remove those disabled users and users who've never logged on. The moment I hit generate, I'm going to have a comprehensive list of those inactive users. I can choose to delete them, disable them, move them to a specific OU, or perform any management action on top of them. Yes. Okay, so we've discussed another crucial report from a security standpoint. Let's get into a tricky report. Most of the administrators face this specific challenge. So what do I mean to say? Say for example, a user is a part of two groups, say group A and group B. All right. What if group B is in turn linked to top level administrator groups? Say for example, your domain admins group, your DNS admin groups, top level administrators group. The biggest problem or the downside of figuring out the group membership from your ADUC or your users in computers console is going to be that you'll be just able to see the surfacial or just the top level group membership. That's just the first level of it. So if I were to find out the group membership from ADUC, I'll just be able to see group A and B. I'd never know that group B is in turn linked to multiple top level administrator groups. So that's where we've got a specific nested report under users report called as groups for users report. So this report is going to give me a list of all those groups that a specific user is a part of. This is going to be a report that's going to run recursively or iteratively to find out the nested group membership. So let me quickly hit group for users report and show you the report in action. What I've done is I've pre-created a user. I've named him nested user for clarity's sake. Yes. And this specific nested user in Active Directory is just a member of two groups. All right. just a member of two groups. I'm selecting the user is just a member of two groups. One, the basic domain users group, and then he's also a member of a group called as nested group. So if you were to look for the group membership for this user that I'm going to select right now from your Active Directory users and computers console, all right, all you'll be able to see is just two groups: the basic group, which is the domain users group, and the nested group. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate group for users report, and let's see if I'm able to get a clearer picture, get more visibility into what his group membership is. So hitting OK and hitting generate. So there might be instances when we administrators get confused. A specific user who's just a part of basic groups suddenly has access to some critical file server or some critical, a critical domain controller or a critical group. That's because of nested group membership. So as a security check, as a troubleshooting mechanism, you can try out this nested user. I've generated the report, and what do I see right here? What do I have right here? The nested user who was supposed to just be a part of two groups, the domain users group and nested group, is also a part of administrators group, DNS admins group, domain admins group, and so on. This was not intentional. All that I knew was he was a part of domain users and nested group if I were to use the ADUC. But then this report, which is the group for users report, has gone iteratively to find out the linked group membership or the nested group membership. So where is the root cause for this problem? So this nested group of which the user is a part of is in turn linked to the DNS admin group, the domain admins group, the enterprise admins group, and the administrators group. So this is where the problem lies. So this group is in turn linked to all of these critical administrator groups, and that's the reason why this user has got access to all these groups in a nested manner. So the next time when you are facing a problem figuring out or having a tough time to figure out why exactly a user has more permission than he actually should have, so you can quickly get to check his nested group membership and remove those unrequired or irrelevant groups of which he is not supposed to be a part of. Yes, and perform the management action. Most importantly, get back to this group that's nested and remove group membership for this group as well. All right, so we've discussed a critical, tricky report that's going to help you solve the challenge of nested group membership, a AD report, a user report, groups for users report, which is going to give you access to nested group membership. So yes, we're done with another important report. Let me quickly get into a security report or a report for managing your file server permissions. Okay, so there are instances when, during the course of business, a critical file server or a critical folder is shared with an employee, on the go. But then you might have probably forgotten, or you might have probably forgotten to revoke that specific access. So that's going to be troublesome. So that's how you go ahead and find out. So permissions for folders is how you're going to find out those users who have permission to a specific folder. So we're talking about AD reports, NTFS reports, permissions for folders reports. So there are other NTFS reports like the shares in the server, the folders that are accessible by a specific account, and non-inheritable folders. So all of these NTFS reports are going to give you a clear view as to which user has access to which folder, or vice versa, the other way around, which folder or which share can be accessed by who all. Yes. So now I'm going to start off with permissions for folders report. All right. So permissions for folders report is going to give me an option to select the specific share or the folder for which I want to check the permission for. I'm selecting the required shared resource path. Let me get into my domain controller to check for a critical instance or a critical resource path. So let's say this specific folder that's right here that says do not delete. So it's going to be obviously a critical folder that's got to be accessed just by the administrators or top level executives, right? I'm hitting OK. I've selected the required folder. I can choose the level up to which the permissions have to be looked up for or checked for. Let me say all subfolders. I can also have a custom level. So I'm saying all subfolders, and I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. So this is going to give me a list of all those users who have access to this particular share. Supposedly, this specific share should be accessed just by the top admins as per my setup. But then let's see if any other user has beyond the administrator. Okay, so the report is generated. Administrator, yes. Administrator, yes. Operators, yes. But then there's one specific user. All right, beyond the administrative group right here, Darth has access to the critical share. So this report is going to help me figure out all those users who've got access to a specific share. So this way, this access that's unintentional or this access that's not supposed to be there has been found out. The next obvious step is to perform an action on top of this. So the best part is you can also get into the advanced permissions and see what level of permissions are granted for a specific share. All right, quickly hitting on advanced. Okay, so Darth Vader has permission. He's got full control apparently. That's not supposed to be the case. This is a critical share path. This is a critical folder, and it's just supposed to be accessed by all critical administrators. So now that I've figured out that there's an issue, I can quickly get into my AD management module. All right. It's going to be a NTFS management task that I'm performing. Now that I've found out that there's an inappropriate access that's granted, I'm going to get into AD management, get into file server management, and remove that inappropriate NTFS permission. Yes. The moment I hit NTFS, modify NTFS permission, this is going to give me access to the console from where I can pick those folders. Okay, so in this case, it was a folder from my domain controller 1. Selecting the folder, this was my folder. The do not delete folder was the folder. I've selected that specific folder. What I can do is I can choose to specify those set of users who have to have access from this module. So already, like I mentioned, it's just the administrators that are supposed to have access. So let me go ahead and quickly select the administrator accounts. I can choose the groups on the whole. So that's the advantage of this specific action. I can either choose users manually or choose an entire group. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose the entire group, looking for the administrator group. I'm going to say domain admins. Yes, just the domain admins. And I'm going to set permission as full control and hit OK. And I've set the permission as allow. All right. So now that I know that Darth Vader has access permission or is not supposed to access this specific folder, I can go ahead and choose Darth and remove him of his permission. All right. Let's not let the dark side take over. So let me quickly search for Darth. So yes, so we've got Darth from the finance. Darth somehow is a part of two OUs. Again, mischievous Darth. So let's just remove this. All right, hit OK, and you can choose full control. All right, here comes the crucial step and say deny. So this way we're stripping Darth of full control and we've denied him of permission. All right, we're just granting the domain admins. Alternatively, as a best approach, what you can do is you can remove all of this. Okay, let's remove Darth also and say remove all existing permissions. Remove all existing permissions and just apply the above permissions. So this is going to remove all the existing permissions, be it Darth or any other user for that matter. All of the permissions are going to be removed and it's going to become a clean slate that we are going to be working on. I've selected domain admins and that's the only group that's going to get access. So I've selected remove all existing permissions and just apply the ones that are listed above. All right. The moment I hit modify, let me see, I can take a quick preview. So this is going to give me, see, yes, so this is giving me a preview on what permissions are being altered. So domain admins are going to get full control on all folder levels, and the permission is set as allow. All right, that will give me a quick overview. The moment I hit modify, before I modify, I've seen the preview. The moment I hit modify, all of the permissions for this specific folder are going to be removed, and just the one that's mentioned right here is going to be applied. So that way I've removed all those users who are not supposed to have access. I've kept my confidential folder confidential and just kept it accessible by the administrators. I've cleaned up my system. Okay, so we are done with another report. We are almost about towards the end of the session. Let me conclude today's session with an interesting report. All right, so this is going to be an interesting report called as the photo-based report. So this report is going to give me a list of all the users who have or do not have their photo set in Active Directory. Yes, photo-based report, users with photo, quickly hitting generate. All right, so there are two users with photos. Let me quickly say Yoda has a photo. So this way I can generate a list of all the users in my organization who have photo or do not have photo. For those of the users who do not have photo, I can generate a CSV file and carry out the modification from AD management. Getting into AD management, yesterday we were talking about bulk user management. Yes, so it's going to be an AD management task, and it's going to be manage users photo. So I can either choose to alter those users without photos, or I can choose to change the users with photo, change the photo of the users. All right, so here I've got Yoda and there's a picture. I can choose to change or upload to a new picture. I can do that. Let me quickly search for a better picture. Yoda smiling. So this seems to be a serious Yoda. Let me quickly show you how to change the picture. So what we've done is we've generated a report for users with and without photos, and I am planning to alter the photo of a specific user. All right, he seems to be happy in this picture, so I'm going to quickly use this as his picture. He seems to be smiling, so yes. All right, so what I'm doing right here is I'm trying to alter the photo of a user, clicking on change, selecting the photo and cropping it as per my requirement. Okay, it's perfect. Let me click save. So that's going to alter. So there you go. That's how you modify a user's photo who's already got a photo. So for those of the users who do not have photos, you can choose to import photos by a CSV file by specifying a location and using the thumbnail photo attribute that's going to be named as same as that of the SAM account name. So that's going to be the mapping mechanism. So we are talking about interesting report, just a bonus report for you for joining in today's session, photo-based reports. All right, so let me give you a quick recap on the last minute. So we started off today's session talking about logon permissions that were granted to users. We removed them of their accesses through users not in a group report. Just so that you remember once more, I'm writing it down. Users not in group report was the report that we generated to find out non-admin users, and we removed them off access. We went on to do an organizational wide password reset by all users report. We generated a report with all the users, and we then went on to reset password for all of them. Yes, we went still further, talking about custom attributes in two stages. One was duplicates, another was empty attributes. We found them out and we removed them off. And finally, we were talking about nested group membership, where we saw how to find out, iteratively linked groups. And lastly, we concluded today's session with NTFS permission management. We saw how a critical share that had inappropriate user having access, we went on to file server permission management and removed that excess access. All right, So what do we have right here? We are in the third day. We're done with the third day session. Next week is going to be about granular OU and role-based AD delegation and smart workflow. So two critical topics that I not want you to definitely miss. So do join me in next week's session. All right, next Tuesday we'll be talking about AD delegation and workflow. When it comes to delegation, we are going to talk about a secure attribute level delegation. Yes, and we are also going to talk about creating a management console, a user management console for your HR. So your HR no longer needs to, take the trouble of generating requests, communicating to your IT help desk. Instead, just give them an access to an user management console, and user onboarding is going to be that simple. So we're going to be talking about AD delegation, how to securely create roles, how to have them assigned to your technicians, and go about managing your entire Active Directory. We are also going to be talking about workflow, a multi-level workflow. Please understand, it's a multi-level workflow where we're going to be talking about a ticket-based request review approval system. All right, so that's going to be the agenda for the next week. Day 5 is going to be about automation. So next week, I'm looking forward to see you all once more. Thank you so much for being such a great audience. It's been wonderful presenting to you. Thanks so much for all the questions. I'll be taking all the questions right now. All right. Well, thank you once again for having taken the time. If in case you have any further queries, you can make use of this specific URL that's on your screen. Email to this address, and I'm also available on the chat. For those of you who want a copy of the video, that's going to be available for you. All you'll have to do is just drop me a message with your email address and a smiley, and I'm going to have it sent over to your email address right away. So you all have a great weekend. You all have a great day as well. So looking forward to see you next week. This is Jay, your presenter for the day, signing off. See you. Tada. Bye bye. You all have a nice weekend. Bye bye.